Hello everybody. So, a lot of my friends have been asking me about what other advice can you give us about the pandemic since I've been living in China. Well, I pretty much in my last videos have told you everything I know about the quarantining, what needs to be done. From what I've seen, very few people have taken this to heart. I think many of my friends have, but they're helpless to do anything because of just no cooperation from the government or from the local law enforcement. We won't go into that. But people are curious. They've heard things about the Chinese way that they are tracking people, and there's a credential system: green, yellow, and red. Green means you're okay, you could enter, you can do whatever you want within an area. Yellow means it's time to go home, self-quarantine, and until you get checked and cleared by a virus test. And red means you have to stay in your house or go to a hospital and have get medical care. Red means pretty much means you're sick and you're off limits. You're not allowed to go anywhere. But how this works is we are using our phones, okay? Now, everybody, we're all pretty much anybody that is well read about what's going on around the world. We know that China has a very large computer-based surveillance system to keep track of people. They have cameras everywhere. They track your phones, everything else. Basically, they know where you are all the time. They follow, in Western China especially, they follow you everywhere on camera. There are no, very, very rarely, I'm not going to say there are very rarely do you see pursuit cops. They won't chase you down. They'll just follow you with a camera until you run out of gas or you go home or go wherever you're going. Then they'll send cops to come and get you if you break the law. Or, they'll just track you down and take away your driver's license if you have too many traffic violations. Now, people think, well, that's like Big Brother. It is like Big Brother here. The Communist Party in China stays in power by, stifling dissent. But these powers can be used for good also. And that's what's happening now. As far as I'm concerned, it is. And they are tracking people. They know if there is an outbreak of the coronavirus somewhere, they will be able to track your phones, know who you are by your phone, where you've been, and if you have been in an area where there is the coronavirus, you are automatically like yellow. And if you have been in direct contact with somebody that has the coronavirus, very close proximity, you will become red. That means you have to get checked. If you're yellow, you have to stay inside until you are cleared. Okay. Green means you haven't been around anybody, or that they know of. You haven't been around any infected people that they know of. Now, let's digress a little back to the tracking. I used to build telephone offices and all kinds of telecommunication stuff. I've done work for the Department of Defense and everything else. Now everybody thinks, oh, China, they're tracking everybody. the United States has been doing that for a long time. The NSA has a program, you could read about it. It might be called something else now, I don't know. It was called Carnivore. I used to build out some of this stuff, and they have, in the major telephone offices, they have sections of this, and it pretty much tracks the internet. It tracks all the internet traffic, and there are buzzwords and certain things that it looks for, and then it alerts the authorities when, like if there's traffic and people are talking about terrorism and things. Now, this infrastructure is already in place in America. Maybe not as many cameras for tracking people, but the phone system. If there's a serious crime committed, the police will track any people of interest. They will find out where they've been by tracking their phone records, and your phone pings the cell towers all the time, and they can follow you. So don't think that this is just some Orwellian technology, specific to China. It's not. It's been in the West for a long time. Probably the Chinese have probably copied it from the West more than anything else. Now, that being said, so this is how it works. You have to fill out an app. My employer, the university where I work, gave us an ultimatum. Said you have to fill out the information on this app. It's a phone app, and you put in where you live. For foreigners, you put in your passport number, your employer, and your address where you live, and a few other things. And then you have to, it's kind of like you're on your honor. You have to fill up, you have to say whether you've been sick, whether you've been exposed to anybody, how you're feeling now, a bunch of medical questions, and they take your word for it. Now, if they find out you lie about these things, you're going to do like at least a couple years in prison. Okay? It's hard for them to prove a lot of that, but this is just to get you started. So if you've been infected, you have to tell them, or if you've been around people that are infected, you have to tell them and then a big part of it is if you've been to Wuhan or Hubei province, that automatically makes you yellow or red. Okay? So anyway, by default, you're green. That means you're free to move around, to go places. People can check on you, okay? So how this works is when you're green, if you go to a premises, okay? Okay, let's start this way. If you go to any premises, usually even a parking garage, any mall, any shopping center, any place, a bank. I had to do this at the bank. I had to do this going into the parking lot, and I had to do it going into the bank. Some of you, I know Americans don't use QR codes very often. We use them in China all the time. You pay with your phone. Your phone you have different programs, Alipay or WeChat, QQ. There are things that connect to your bank account. You scan this with your phone, right? Boom, you scan it, and then you pay. So these we're used to using this all the time, right? So now every time you go to a different premises, they have a QR code. And all these premises, they register, they do a thing where they register with the government. They print these out on paper and they have them hanging around. There's one for QQ, one for Alipay, one for Tencent, which is WeChat. They'll usually have 2 or 3 of these, and they will tell you, okay, they'll point to one, use this one. And what you do is you scan this, and then it comes up, and you get and you scan with whichever app you are using on your phone. You scan the QR code, then it will come up, and then you have to hit a special button that's in it, and it verifies that you are green, yellow, or red. And that looks something like this, if you can see it. It's all dotted out. Now if they scan, this has name, passport number, address, workplace listed here. Okay, probably can't see that. Now it's all dotted out, you can't see it. But if they need to know, then they will scan your QR code. If you can see this, it might be hard to see with the, because I'm using this webcam. This is green. You get a green QR code. Usually you just show that to them and they go, oh, okay, you're cool. Come on in. But you have to be wearing a mask, and you show them the green QR code and you're all good. And you have to do this every premise. It's like, bam, scan, show them your green QR code. Now, I was at the bank today, right? Now, if somebody at that bank becomes infected, if they get a case of the coronavirus at that bank, of anybody that was in there, like within a certain time period, then the app will go back, and in the supercomputers they have my green QR code. Let's see if I can get back up here. This will turn yellow or red. That means I have been in a near or in an area where there was an infection. That means I'm to be watched, I'm to be quarantined and checked. So that's how they are tracking the people that are possibly exposed to the virus. Now, this is a great idea. I know a lot of the conspiracy theory peckerwoods out there don't want this intrusion of their privacy, but in America, I mean, that's why I don't think it will take off in America. People are too paranoid. Paranoia of technology and the government using it is good, but people are dying. Okay, now my opinion is this should be compulsory. Everybody should have this. Okay, everybody should do this. If you don't do it, then you're just not allowed to go anywhere. You're not allowed to do anything. Now, whether this happens in America, I know for a fact that the computer infrastructure, the technology is already in place. They just need somebody to make an app like this. Google or somebody, or a couple different companies, make the app and just integrate this. It can't be that difficult. They do bigger things, Facebook, and I mean, they have so many technological resources. Everybody's on social media. It would probably be a task, but it's very, very doable. And I believe this should be the next step for the United States and probably the rest of the world. It's Orwellian, but if you want to kick this virus in the ass, you're going to have to do things like this, right? At least then put a caveat on it that would get rid of all the information is erased once we're past the pandemic. I know I'm paranoid about the government. I'm not a big fan of how the government operates. Any government. I'm not a fan of any government, actually. But I'm telling you, man, this virus is going to linger around for a long time, and it's going to be a bigger pain in the ass than this is. To do this, it's not that big a deal. To deal with this pandemic, if it lingers for years, I mean, it's going to be a long time. Nobody even knows whether you get an immunity once you're infected and you get better, whether you're actually going to be immune or not. It's really fucking scary. So we need to try and nip it in the butt. We need to do this stuff in other places around the world. Okay? So say what you want about the Chinese government and everything, but they do use some of the technology for good. They do some very good things with it also. Okay? So, that being said, I just thought I would bring that to your attention because a lot of people are asking me, they hear about this stuff and nobody really explains it on TV. I haven't seen anybody explain it, or on YouTube I haven't seen anyone explain it. But that's what's happening. So that's how they know whether you've been in a bad area or not. And then they say, hey, listen, you might be infected. Go get checked or quarantine yourself until you do. And if you don't do that, if you turn red and you're not quarantined in your house, you get in a lot of trouble. I mean, you might not be infected, but, you know, and that's the way it should be. Now, that's my pandemic advice for today. And I'd like to show you guys. So this is the stuff I bought originally when regular hand or rubbing alcohol was not available. Now, they sell this in all the grocery stores. This is a big gallon jug of 56%. That's 112 proof alcohol. Now, I don't know of anybody that drinks this straight. I take a couple sips once in a while. This is for drinking. But in China, it's kind of cool. This is my Chinese cultural note I'm adding on it. Everybody makes fruit infusions, like all the restaurants. You go to the small towns, there's so much different kind of fruit grown here, especially here in the Yangtze Delta. It's subtropical, it's so fertile, there's just stuff growing everywhere. There's all types of fruit. They make fruit infusions. So people buy this stuff and then they just make their own hooch out of it. They just soak this fruit. I've had this in my fridge for a couple of years. I've only drank a little bit of it, but we got jars of this stuff from every time I go to a place and I see some new kind of fruit infusion, I buy a jar and I'll just keep it around the house. It's kind of nasty actually, but it gives you a kick-ass buzz. But I'm kind of a booze collector, so. Now, these became available. I could get this 75% alcohol. This is for sterilization. You could buy this all over the place now. It was rare at the beginning of the pandemic. It was hard to find anything alcohol-based except for the drinking kind. They never ran out of that. That's why I bought this. But this stuff, I bought a couple bottles. I have a little camping stove I burn this in. We've got hand sanitizer and all kinds of soap, everything. I don't really need it for sterilization now. But I only bought a couple bottles of this because I can't drink it. But I can drink this. I could have a hell of a party with a bottle of this. This is pretty nasty though, to drink this straight. Ooh. But, I'm out of bourbon. So, anyway, that's my, that's the pandemic advice and Chinese cultural note for today. I hope this falls on some receptive ears somewhere. I know my friends will probably watch this. I hope somebody that could actually do something about it will maybe, or just start telling people about this so that the government becomes aware and maybe somebody will take this to heart. I know all the idiots in all branches of government in the United States are messing things up really bad. I'm not going to get into the blame game right now. I'm just trying to give you some advice. That's a whole new ball of wax, whole new can of worms. They're blaming people. I blame everybody except me, actually. Anyway, so that's it. And power to the people.